Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm here to do a video that I've seen a few people request, and it is how I study. And this is how I studied for my fundamentals class, and my med-surg and my psychology. So I used the same study method for all the classes in it, and it worked really well. I did not use this for my pharmacology. I had to do it a little differently. So if y'all want to see a video on that, just let me know. But I'm excited to show you how I study, and I just want to mention that this is just how it worked for me. It may not work like that for you. I think everybody has to find their own way to study because everybody learns differently, everybody remembers differently, processes information differently. So I think you just have to find what works for you. But I mean, I hope you can take some of these tips. The way I study is kind of lengthy. It's time consuming, but it has worked and I have done really well so far. So let's get to it. Okay, so to me, the basis of studying starts with class and how you take your notes. I couldn't find my PowerPoint for this chapter, but I found my notes for this chapter, and I think good studying starts with, just your notes and listening in the classroom. And I'm sorry if you hear my dogs crunching in the background. I gave them bones so they would lay down, but I don't know if you can really tell, but when I was in class, I underlined and I wrote inside my book along with on the PowerPoints, because I learn by reading and then doing. So like in this chapter, I have this circled, so that must have been something she pointed out a lot on. I have this underlined and I wrote something down beside of it, so that must have been important. So in class, I would write in the book, I would underline things she pointed out, like these boxes that she wanted us to read. I would make notes around everything, and then I would also take notes on the PowerPoints as well. But I feel like I learned by reading too, so I would go back and after class, after I've underlined and wrote and all that, when I would come home from class, I would read the chapter. Now these chapters are long, so it did take a long time, but as I was reading, I would highlight important things from each section that I thought was important. I would highlight those, and then I would come over and I have my book here, and I would write. I would make notes. I would make a summary of whatever that was about and what I highlighted. So let's just see. Like this first one, safety, the definition. And, it has a long definition here. And then I just kind of summarized it here of what it is. And so that's what I did for all of it. Let me see if I can find a better example real fast. Okay, here's a better example. So you see here the basic needs. Environmental safety and the basic needs. And then in the book it has basic needs, and then it lists each of the basic needs and something about them. So I wrote over here basic needs, and then I wrote like oxygen, and I wrote the main points about oxygen, carbon monoxide, nutrition, the main points about everything, and I wrote it down. And I think where most stuff clicked for me was actually when I wrote it down. Because, I can read something all day, and it does help to read it, but writing it down helps it to stick. I had to read to understand it, but then when I write it down, it helps me to memorize it, and it just helps it to make a little bit more sense to me. That may not make sense to you, but that's just what made sense to me. Tip that I have that I used a lot for my classes, and I've used it in every one, and this might sound silly, but I have several colors of highlighters and writing that I use. Like you can see this is a different chapter than the one that I showed you, and it's in blue. So like I used every chapter, I would change the color, and I would just use different color highlighters for every chapter, and I would write in a different color pen, and I usually matched them together. But just the different colors, and this might sound silly, but it's what worked for me. The different colors actually just kind of entertained me in a way, and it just made it a little more fun, so that I could sit there for hours and study like that, because it does take a lot of time, and it is and it's kind of hard to do that, because I literally would sit every day after school for at least probably 4 hours after school and work every day. I literally did study 7 days a week. I would study every single day for at least 2 hours minimum, but most of the days it was 4 and 5 hours. I studied a lot, but my grades showed that. I had A's on my exams and A's on my HESI. I've been doing really well. And at the end of last semester, I kind of slacked off on my reading and writing it down as much, and I just tried to kind of glide through it. I didn't fail, but I didn't do as well. I was getting B's instead of A's, so You just have to find what works for you and stick with it. If I can get tongue-tied here, it is time consuming, but when you put the work in, you really will see it. So I think one of my biggest tips, and I may do a separate video on just tips, but one of my biggest tips is just to make sure you're studying and you keep up with it. I know you can get burnt out, but just make sure you do it because it is very important to do. I don't know if that made a lot of sense to you guys, but it's just what I did. If you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below and I'll get back with you, and I hope you all are doing well, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.